Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome out to tonight's weekly coaches call for all of the coaching members here at Tax Sale Support. We are happy to have you join us.
Yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate, especially if you guys get the chance to come out live, and a lot of you guys do. We know a lot of you sometimes can't make it and you watch the replays, but if you get a chance to be here, we really appreciate it, and we want to thank you guys personally.
Yeah, actually, we were working on this right up until the last moment. I know we've got the date set for the next event because I think it's the 13th, 14th, and 15th of December.
Yep, exactly. So we're going to do another 3-day this year. We weren't going to plan it out until maybe February, but we've had enough people interest. A lot of the coaching students that were on the East Coast said they can't attend on the West Coast, and so we've decided to go ahead and hold one in Florida, in Orlando, on those dates, say, Shade.
Yeah, the 13th, 14th, and 15th of December. And so that'll be exciting. We're, it's another date another chance to meet a lot of the coaching students that we have and people that are over on that side of the country where it's a little bit easier to meet. So we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It is such a good experience to meet the coaching students in person. We get a chance to talk with you guys. We're following you, what you're doing with your coaches on a weekly basis as we follow up with the coaches to find out where you're at. But getting the chance to meet you and spend 3 days with you was a pretty great experience, at least for us.
Yeah, and I think anytime we can meet people in person, I think it makes a difference. And also, some people learn better, when they can be there on site, and it helps them. But the topic for tonight and something that we wanted to start to dig into is something that I think a lot of people struggle with. At least it seems like it, definitely from a lot of the questions that we get. And also our views on it have even changed quite a bit, over, the necessity of it and how often it works. And that is really investor title searches, or we could also talk about title research would be another way that you could look at it. But it's essentially the work that we do to figure out whether or not we want to buy a lot of these investments. It's work that we do to determine risks.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Shade said, it's kind of evolved over time. There was years ago where we just said automatically doing a title search.
Yeah, just having title searches done. But the reality of it is that having a professional title search done in a lot of cases just isn't really practical when you're doing it for potential investments.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and or you're spending a huge amount of money on deals that may or may not go to auction, and in some cases, that's the only way we're going to get that information, is we're going to have a title company do some type of lien search in certain areas of the country where there is no public records available online.
Yeah. In fact, there are still cases where it's just the only way that you can get some of the information that you want. But in every other case, if we can get the information on our own, every time it's going to be worthwhile to do it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're leaving it up to somebody else, to get it, or if you can get it at all, it's information that you really have to retrieve here at some point if you want to be able to make good investment decisions on it.
Well, so, excuse me, especially as the investment, goes up. If you are investing, minimal amounts in tax deeds, spending $100 or $200 or even more than that for some type of a title search can be pretty expensive, and so when we're, especially that's what we're talking about, where you're investing, $500 or $1,000, and you're doing a $200 or $300 title search.
Yeah, in fact, we're going to go back here in a minute on some of those other slides, so don't worry about those for a second. We'll go back and talk about them. But yeah, and the reality of it is, for professional title searches, in some cases, we're going to still pursue them. But whenever we can access records, we're going to try to utilize an investor title search whenever we can. And that's going to be because the records are there online and they're more accessible than they've ever been before. It wasn't that long ago where to get any of these records, we had to be on site and which basically required travel for most of the country.
Yeah, yeah, and that's still done in a few places. Like Michael had to do that when he went to Arkansas in some of the counties because they didn't have those records online. But so, like Shade mentioned, many in these counties are adding that information.
Yeah, in fact, this image here is an image of what you would normally see if you were to go and visit a lot of county records. If you were to go and visit a county and you were looking to go through different records. And that is because all of these records have been hard copies in the past, and so if you wanted to find out more information about a property, you would basically have to go here to the county building, and you would have to know exactly where these records were located, or you'd have to search through some of the tools they had there to help you locate the records.
Yeah, when you hear the book and page, they actually still have these records because they'll still need to, have the actual deed on file.
Yeah, they still have a
So
physical copy.
Yeah, they actually still have these type of books, and this is where we see that book and page number. The book number being 451 or 435,
Mm-hmm.
and then the page number, obviously the page number of the book is going to be where the deed is located. So years ago, or even now in some rural counties, you're going to go in there, they're going to pull out that book, they're going to make a Xerox copy, and you're going to pay for copies.
Yeah, that's how you get copies of the deed.
Yeah,
it's basically, is by them doing, Xeroxes of them. But fortunately now, we have immediate electronic access to a lot of these records immediately. So we don't have to wait, we don't have to be there in person now. We can navigate and find these records on our own. And so from there, we basically can get most of the stuff we need in order to perform quite a bit of research on the property, in terms of figuring out what's going on here, with it in the past. Of course, our ability to access these online will depend upon what's available online too. That's a major factor as well, is that every county has records like these. They're on location because it's how they keep their records, but not necessarily every county's placed them online yet.
Yeah.
So we still run into cases where a lot of the research just can't really be done.
And in fact, when I first started as a real estate agent, this was right as they were kind of moving this over. So you had to go down to the county courthouse and get that information, in person. I remember doing that when I was first getting started in real estate, where you actually had to do it in person.
Yeah. Now, some of the advantages, again, in some cases, it's still going to be worth it to get a professional title search done because there are nice things that they can provide. But in a lot of cases, though, it's just the only way that we can get the records. If we can't access them online, then we may have to hire out a title search company in order to get one. But there are advantages to professional title searches, in getting that done if the property value is good enough, if it justifies having it done, like having a nice little report done where you can have everything lined out in a way that makes sense. You can have your list of judgments and liens. You can have everything delivered in a format that's really easy to understand.
Yeah, and if we're going to go through quiet title or anything like that, we're going to have a full title report done. But for, our purposes, if we can get it for cheaper and just get the lien information, what's called a lien report, sometimes that's going to be enough, because what we're most concerned of before we buy is any of those governmental liens. And so it is worth, contacting a couple of title companies or abstractors and seeing if they can go ahead and do just a lien report and what the cost would be.
Yeah, because really this is overkill for what we are really concerned about. A full title search goes into great detail, and for us, the primary things that we're concerned about with the title search are going to be any liens that can survive that foreclosure process that the property has just been through. So that's pretty well going to come down to government issued liens, and that's why that's the only thing that we're really looking for in terms of potential risks there. When we're having that search done. Beyond that, there are a lot of things I think that a professional title search can do for us. But again, there's just a lot of cases where it's not really going to be practical to do.
Yeah, if one tip about a professional title search, if you are going to have it done, do it as close to the auction day as possible, and also make sure you work that out with the title company so you know exactly how long. Some have a 24-hour turnaround because most of it's online. If it's a small enough area, they might actually have to go down there, so it may be a 3-day. If it's 24-hour turnaround and you do it the day before, well, that's going to at least narrow your chance of spending a bunch of money and not even be able to bid on the property because the owner came in and paid it off at the last minute.
Yeah, but the way that you'll know is if they have the records online, then you won't have to worry about really having it done. If the records aren't available online, then you're going to need to contact the company and find out what their turnaround is, in order to get one done professionally. But if they do have online records, then we're going to do an online investor title search. And, really, this is basically what we do in order to try to locate any liens that might be against the property, and also to get an idea about what the quiet title efforts might be like.
Yeah, well, you can look into the deeds, you can look into the history, you can look into the past sales, you can look into, any liens or judgments, whether they be, if we can get into the records, you can really pull up almost all governmental records, including, criminal records, all kinds of stuff, if you really wanted to get into it.
Yeah. In fact, we can pull up all of it. So, yeah, let's talk about how we're going to start these investor title searches. Yeah. Also, if the county doesn't have any kind of an online records, and really the only option from there, in some cases, you can call up the county and get the county to provide some records to you. You may have to pay for them. In some cases, they may, send you records anyway. But if the records aren't online in terms of legal records that we need, then you're probably going to have to find, a title company, title insurance company that's there close.
Yeah.
Okay, so here are the steps. We're going to go through each one of these steps kind of slowly here, and I've got a property here that we're going to be looking at online, but then I would like to kind of jump over and be able to do some of this live. So step one we're going to focus on here that we do with every property is we're going to pull up the tax assessor's records, or locate the tax assessor's records. In fact, it kind of goes back to that very first slide, but there are 3 types of records that we deal with, and the tax assessor records are the first type of property record here. So we can use the assessor's records to locate a lot of the primary property information that we're going to deal with. Now, what I did in this case, I wanted us to have some kind of property that we could start to dig into the property information for. And one of the things I've been looking at lately are the results of some of the sales here lately, and as we target different auctions to participate in. And so for Lee County, Florida, yesterday, they held an auction. And
in fact, that's one thing to mention about, just quickly, sorry to interrupt, I just kind of have thought about us being down there in Florida during that time. You could, our students could go down there, go view property in another county. It's a business expense. You're coming down there for training. You can write it off as part of your,
totally.
And also make an investment trip out of it as well, where you're looking at a live auction that may be taking place, going to look at property in the surrounding county, or even in that county that has upcoming online auctions.
Yeah, that would actually be kind of fun to do.
In fact, we might have to do that ourselves, but that could be an option for the students while they're down there. While talking about Florida, is you could go look at some of these upcoming sales.
Yeah. So what we're doing here, I was looking at the results, which it's one of the ways that we figure out where we're going to participate, which auctions we're going to participate in, and also gives us an idea of what kinds of deals we think that we can get. We basically try to target the sales, where we can have the best opportunity. But this was a property that sold yesterday to a third party, and it looked like an interesting property. I pulled it up. It wasn't really looking for anything specific. This one I thought was interesting. It says, access is undetermined, but they've obviously got a road that's there. Yeah. It's just not necessarily, an official easement, I think, but it's funny that that's how they wrote down the property address was access undetermined. But as I pulled up the the map, the property, it's not a bad little property. It actually is, it's waterside or oceanside basically. I think it's one of the inlets that is there, but
Yeah.
just an inexpensive little lot that was there.
Yeah, well, actually looks like it's got some pretty good size to it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure just looking at it here, but you look at the home and the lot next to it, the home looks pretty small, so it does look like a pretty good lot. And I do agree with you. What would be interesting to look into is see, and it would probably take some work to see if there was some type of easement, on the other property that allowed, the property next to it that allowed the person to drive through.
Yeah, interesting that we talk about that. So, one of the things that we look at when we're looking at properties is when we're looking at a property, we're trying to find information on it. The type of property can indicate the kinds of liens that we might need to look for. So in other words, if we're looking at a single family house, then we might need to look at things like utility-based liens or something like that that could be against the property, because some of those are issued by government entities.
Yeah.
If it's located in town, then we know that, or it looks like it's got grass, that, that may need to have that cut.
Yeah, well, if there's a structure on it as well, that could be, I think that there's probably more, if there's a structure on it, there's a better chance that there could be something against it, some type of governmental lien.
Yeah, vacant land is less likely to have some kind of lien against it. But if it does have a lien against it, then what's the most likely thing to be? Usually some kind of a nuisance or grass cutting lien or something like that.
Now, on a property like this, where it's completely off the path, I would say that that there's probably not any type of city lien. The only type would maybe be a state lien, maybe an IRS lien, but in Florida, they'll usually, pull the IRS liens. But even if there was one on it, or some type of state lien, that's something we could find.
Yeah, and that would be my same assessment on a property like this too, is that, at a glance of it, I would say that, most likely it may not have some kind of a lien against it because it looks like it's still naturally landscaped. And, with where it's located at, it's not the kind of thing that the county's going to come in and have to do a lot of maintenance on. And so it may not have anything.
But for 22 grand, I'm not going to assume there's nothing.
Yeah, it'd be worth looking, right? So what I did here is we wanted to figure out if the guy that bought this here, if there's any issues with it, and figured it would be kind of interesting to look into it. So, if we click on that, it pulls up the actual first step here that we need in the process, which is to locate the assessor record. This is the property assessment record here. And, this is the record that's basically issued and created by the county assessor, but it tells us exactly what the property is. I'm sure everybody here should be familiar with seeing these, because every time we're looking to, try to find out information about a property, this is usually the first thing that we pull up. If we click on that, fortunately, a lot of tax lists now have these types of records directly linked to it. So if we simply click on one of the properties on the list, a link like this will come up and will tell us a lot of the property information that we need. So we can see immediately, as this property. Now, one thing that's interesting is that this is listed as sewage disposal or wastelands.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
A bit of a red flag.
Yeah, it would be a red flag for me. But it is large though too. It looks like it's about 5.4
what's
acres.
Interesting is somebody paid 22 grand for it, even based off of that.
Well, and it has an assessed value of 54,000. So the value is still there, and somebody still paid the money for it. Now, this is just the top half of the record here. If we go down more.
With that sewage disposal, that may be something I actually look to see if there's any information on the EPA. I don't know if sometimes you have to look it up at address, but
yeah, but this is basically the section down below that we would see. And one of the things, one of the first places we would go to look here, if we're trying to find information about the deed or to find the deed, is we're going to go to the sales and transaction history that's located right there. And it's the step we're going to go through here to find the deeds. Now, if they don't have the deed directly located or attached to the sales and transactions, then we can actually just, we can sometimes go to the county website directly and, or even use a Google search.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to go ahead and look up the county recorder. Usually, it can be called the land records, court records, and sometimes where we'll find it as well. But it's really going to be the person that's in charge of collecting all of the mortgages, the deeds, the liens, and records all of that information. And so usually we can just type in, like Shade said, go to Google, type in, court records, land records, county recorder, and see what pulls up, or even just going to the county website, because they're going to be usually one of the elected officials, like the assessor and the treasurer.
Yeah. So here, I've got arrows pointing to two of them. We can see each one of these is a different transaction from a different year. So we've got transactions dating from the oldest listed here is from 1996, and most recent they have listed is 2008.
Yeah.
Now, that time frame is also kind of interesting here, because we know if the most recent transaction there was in 2008, that was about 10 years ago.
Spent 110 for it.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, kind of interesting, huh?
Yeah.
I thought the sales history on this property was fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it sold many times and for a good price.
Well, you see, they sold it from 40 to 110, then 65. Somebody took a huge loss and sold it for 100. And then somebody again sold it for 110, getting out of it quickly.
Yeah, kind of interesting. So as we're looking at the sales transaction history here, this is also where we can locate the deed, but this is also where it's going to tell us things about the deed. So sometimes here it can tell us the type of deed that was used. They've got the the type there listed there, codes. There's somewhere there's a key with every county where you can see what some of these things mean. But what we're going to focus on here, though, are the property deeds.
Yeah, in a case like this, you can go ahead and get the deed. In some counties, you can call and ask for the deed, and many times they'll go ahead and print you one or email you one, or it may cost a fee, but you can usually get them to send you the deeds.
Yeah, let's see here. Now, what we're going to do with the deed here is, in fact, here, let me just pull this up here. So we click on the deed, and it shows up, pops up like this. So the top part there is stuff that the actual, when we talk about, getting your property recorded, that's some of the information they're including. They're plugging it in up there at the top when it is recorded. Down below that, we've got just the law office was prepared by. None of that stuff is really relevant. It doesn't really start until we get to like parcel ID, and then boom, right there, it tells us this was a warranty deed.
Single man, joint tenants.
Yeah, in fact, I think I've got it listed right here. And so, we can.
It's two single men, Arthur Baker and Brian Glover.
Yeah, and they were basically selling the property to, they were the grantors to the grantee, who was Cynthia A. Wood, a married woman. They have listed here, right? So, and we can see they have Cynthia's
Georgia address.
Yeah, Georgia address there.
And that makes a little bit more sense why you let it go. Especially, well, first of all, it's going to be land, which is going to increase the chances.
Well, I think this was a sale for one of the larger amounts.
Oh, this was one of the sales.
Yeah, I think
is one of these people that lost it, or is this the one?
Yes. So I think the person that actually lost this property was, I believe, Cynthia A. Wood.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's good. Well, that's what would make sense to me, where she's an out-of-state investor, maybe bought it to build a home there or something, and eventually said, no, it's not worth it.
Also, one thing that's interesting is that every deed that I pulled up had, you know, the amount listed, the consideration of sum of $10. It didn't actually have the amount, you know, listed accurately in accordance. And yeah, Steve and I were talking about it. It's something that maybe some counties do. You know, they kind of hide the amount.
Yeah, it's an easy way to hide the amount. And, you know, I mean, even where we sold that property, you know, where, you know, we bought that tax lien, the tax deed problem in Mississippi that was owned by somebody, you know, even that was just the way that.
Yeah, they just record it the same way on
Yeah.
all of them. It is probably just something, you know, they do where they don't. Anyhow, so we can see here that gives us the basically the grantor grantee statement here. You know, witnesses that said grantor, and for consideration the sum of, they say the amount and what the deal is, and then the exhibit A is going to be what the property is. You know, that's what the agreement is for, what this property description is. And you know, they also grant her warrants, you know, at the time of this conveyance. It's basically, it has a warranty deed though. And then we've got the names that it's signed to, the county, and then we have the last page there that has exhibit A. And you know, interestingly enough, we have the legal description written there, but then I started reading the legal description there, and I think there is some kind of an easement that's written in. You know, subject to and together with an easement for roadway purposes over and across the westerly 30 feet of northerly, you know, and so I think there actually is. Yeah, I think there actually is an easement there, but the county doesn't have it recorded somehow, or they haven't looked on the deed.
Yeah, well, that's where it's going to be on the deed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, essentially that's where they're going to record it.
Yeah.
The easement is on the deed, and so that's where we would see it here. So there is an easement. You can see it's a road easement. So
yeah, it's just interesting how, remember, they named this one the one,
yeah,
you know, like its access was undetermined.
Well, and that's maybe because that road doesn't have a actual name.
Yeah.
The road doesn't have a name.
Yeah, that's probably why they couldn't put the address on it.
Yeah, and so that, you know, they haven't actually considered it a road yet, but this property has the right for somebody to drive on the dirt road that's there.
Yeah.
So it's not a county road, it's a private road.
Yeah, which easements, this is a place, oops, let me back up one here. You know, this is where easements are going to be included there with a legal description, you know, and it's because it's including there, you know, with them describing the property, they also have to include any easements that are included with the property.
Yeah, a lot of times they'll have you go ahead and add an exhibit A like this. You know, Mississippi does kind of the same thing where you're going to put the legal description down there, and if there was any type of easement, you would add there, you know, that on it.
Yeah. So some of the things that we consider with the deed there when we're looking at it is what type of deed is it first. You know, that tells us a lot, whether it is some type of like a quitclaim deed, or whether it's you know, whether it's a warranty deed, or whether it's something different like a special warranty deed or something. You know, whatever the deed type can tell us quite a bit about what it is. It also may determine or change how much research or how far back we'll go into it. In other words, if it's a quitclaim deed, we'll probably continue doing research, you know, further back into time, you know, because we want to ensure that there weren't problems with the property. But if it had a warranty deed during the last transaction, then we know at least at that point that it was free and clear.
Yeah, and kind of the reason we do that is because if, let's just say there was a couple of quitclaim deeds, well, somebody could transfer that through the quitclaim deed with liens still attached to the property. So if we don't check that other owner's name, then it's possible that there could be liens on that owner because that owner sold it to the next owner. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that there is, but we would go ahead and check to see, is there anything that could be essentially attached to the property? And it really would be something more like a city lien that would attach versus, you know, some type of old state lien or something like that, you know, some old tax lien or something that like that versus, you know, some type of maintenance lien.
Yeah. You know, other than that, the main things that we're looking at there, I mean, we'll read through the deed, but we are basically looking at the names of the grantor, grantees, because we're going to use those names as we search for additional legal records. And so we pay attention to those. We also want to make sure that they match up with county records, that the names do, and how they're listed. But what we're going to do from here is once we have the deeds there, we can read through those to locate easements against the property. But if we want to find something like liens against the property, then to do that, it's going to require searching through another type of county record, which is legal records.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another thing that we can do once we start obtaining deeds is we can establish a chain of title. And
that's really kind of what we talked about as far as going back until that warranty deed.
Yeah.
I mean, when somebody's doing a full establishing the chain of title, they're going to go back 20 to 40 years as they're pulling up and doing a title search. But what we're, like we mentioned before, what we're most concerned of is when was that last warranty deed, and and making sure we search the chain of title at least until that point.
Yeah, because we know that that it was clear at the time of the warranty deed, so we have to we're going to work. We always work back to a warranty deed. At least if there's one there. If there's not a warranty deed, then it would be probably make quiet title maybe a little harder. But I don't know.
Yeah.
You'd have to ask a real estate attorney. So basically, searching the court records is going to be kind of that next step that we go through, and really kind of show you here. A lot of the records that we deal with now have all of the legal side of it combined into a single database that you can search, so you can change a lot of different things on it, like for instance, document types, and you can basically set any kind of criteria you want on it. Now, what we want to do is have a wide criteria in the beginning, because we're going to be using individual names to try to pull up records.
Yeah.
So,
well, you can see over to the side too, you can look underneath different document types. Book and page number would be associated with the real estate side of it.
Mm-hmm. Now, we actually pulled up, so we've got one of the deeds there. We actually pulled up, I pulled up both of them there because they were both easy to click on. But we could see that the last transaction that occurred here, when the property had a warranty deed. So the person that basically lost the property was Cynthia Wood. And the way that it was listed on the property is Cynthia A. Wood, but I wanted to try to get as many options there as we can. So I just type in, I had to change that to Cynthia Wood, not Woods.
One thing, and we'll have to see, because I don't know what the answer is to this, but the fact that she's out-of-state investor would reduce her chances of having some type of governmental lien against the property, because she doesn't live there. She's not going to have state liens, if she's not living there and paying those type of things. I mean, maybe not, but
no, it's true. So what we did here is we plugged her name into it here. Now I played around with the starts with sometimes, and I just leave it like that, because it allows you to search for more options here. So anyways, when we do start searching, it pulls up something like this, when we find some results. And this is not too many results. It all depends on the name, how many people are involved in how much research. If you only have to look up one name, though, it's not necessarily that difficult. You want to look at any of the records that might be associated with the property. So there were only 4, really. In this example, it was easy to pull up and look at. And they're listed right here, and so what we normally look at here is the document type, because what we're looking at here are different legal documents, and some of these could be mortgages, agreements, some of them could be liens or judgments, and different things here. Interesting enough,
city mortgage was satisfied.
Yeah, so actually what I clicked on here was on the notice down there on the bottom, because it was the only one I was really interested in. And what I found here was this. you know, which is the notice of a deed application. And that wasn't her filing the deed. This was somebody else in the lien that bought a lien against her
Yeah,
property.
this was the lien certificate holder essentially doing the deed application.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that would be interesting, you know, if we were looking to buy this property, is I would like to see, was there a mortgage against this particular property? You know, did she just pay cash for it, or did she, you know, put a mortgage on it? You know, either way, that's going to be reduced. But was there a mortgage on this property, or was that some other type of debt?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You know, it seems like it sold for a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, originally there. But yeah, this was just the application from the deed holder, I mean, from the lien holder, you know, to foreclose on the property. And really, I was searching through it before and couldn't find any, you know, couldn't find any lien against the property either.
Yeah.
You know, which kind of went along with, you know, my suspicion was, you know, that we probably wouldn't find a lien against the property too.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't look like one. You know, there's going to be certain things as you guys start looking at more and more property, there's going to be little clues that kind of let you know, hey, there could be, or there's more likely, or there's a better chance that there's going to be a lien on this property versus other property. Like we looked at that property where, you know, it doesn't, you know, it's doesn't even really on its own road, you know, at least a government county road. And so there's not going to be a big need to have somebody go out there and mow or do something like that, where if there was some type of lien, it would be some type of state lien or something like that versus your regular city type lien, which is going to be the most common type.
Yeah. Yeah, let me just go like this now. And let me erase a few of these here. This is actually that property.
Maybe we should check the questions quick.
Oh yeah.
Got any?
I don't know. I didn't see any yet here.
Okay.
Oh wait, maybe there is. Hold on. No, I'm wrong. There are some. Hold on here. Let me grab that. Let's see. Which state has the fastest over-the-counter deed purchasing process? You know.
You know, they're all going to be a little bit. They're all going to be a.
Yeah, they're all equally slow.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Nebraska. I mean, Arkansas, you're looking at least 2 months. Mississippi doing the offers. If you're doing it with the auction, then at the end of the auction, you could get it within 30 days. But if you're doing it over the counter, it can be easily.
It seems like in almost every case, there's going to have to be some kind of review process.
Yeah, Pennsylvania, you know, has going to have several review processes.
Does Florida, do their over-the-counter deeds have a review?
Yeah, but their deeds are such junk.
Their over-the-counter deeds are kind of garbage. Florida, you might be able to get the stuff faster. Like Texas, do they have a review process on their
well, you're gonna have the redemption period on those, you know, at least
you
got it over that.
I guess that's true too.
You know, it just really is a more timely process.
Yeah, over-the-counter buying.
You know, you get them in auction, you can get it within 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, that probably is the fastest way to get the actual deed itself, is if you buy it at auction. You know,
but even just sending in a deed to the county and getting it recorded, we've had it take months in sending out a deed and having it finally get recorded and posted with the county. So, you know, it's just we're dealing with county governments, and, you know, speed is not the name of the game when it comes to the way that they move.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, in fact, I think that property that we were looking at here was actually right there. And I was looking at several of the sales there. There's actually some pretty good opportunities I noticed in some of these upcoming auctions here. You know, a few of the counties. You know, I noticed that, you know, in some of the past sales, you know, that you know, Bay's got some sales coming up where I think there's some good opportunity, and they didn't have very high bids. You know, a lot of their past sales, I noticed, you know, that a lot of their stuff sold for, you know, for not crazy amounts, and, you know, it wasn't bad property. You know, so we can see. Anyhow, some of these auctions are a good idea, you know, to get registered for. You know, at least if there's a good opportunity to acquire property, and some of these properties are really nice. I don't remember what this one is here.
That one actually has, that one 6100, but it's got a year built, 1961,
Yeah.
some type of structure.
Oh yeah. Let me see if they've got.
Sure, for $6,000, it's got to be a bit of a dump, but
Yeah, it does.
It's
It
still
has
pretty
its
cheap.
own land there too. Yeah.
Almost a lot.
Yeah, they only paid $6,000 for that, and it's assessed at 28,000 total.
I'd actually like to look at that one. Street view on it.
Yeah, let's see here. The physical address there is.
That might be a tarp on the roof. A blue tarp, or it could be paint. I don't know.
I think it's probably blue tarp here.
Well, you can see where some of it kind of looks like it might be paint. I don't know.
910 of 219. All right.
Panama City.
Oh, whoops, hold on here.
It's probably got the address just on the real auction right there.
Oh, yes, it does. This is the one you're looking at, right?
I don't know. $6,000. Maybe it's on that other one. Disappeared.
Oh, here we go. Here it is.
Well, that's weird.
Is it on the third page here? I did lose it altogether here. $6,000. No.
There's one $6,000. Just right below.
Yeah, the assessed is low though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not the same property.
Maybe it was on that other one.
Well, anyhow, losing track here anyway with this. Show you here with some of these. There's also, just going to show you here. Pasco County had some opportunities here. I noticed, in their past sale when they had larger sales, they didn't have a ton of competition in them. And, I noticed, of course, this is coming up though tomorrow. And so, well, how many do they still have there? Only 7 left out of the 19 originally were there. But let's take a look at one of these properties here and see if we can dig into any of the records here.
The one for Fort 23 looks best so far. As far as it's not on file, might not be.
All right, well, let's pull up one here that we can pull up on file here.
Or 6 for 32.
Yeah, this one. So this one's starts at 427, 6 for 32. That might work.
There's the physical address, Tucker Square.
All right, cool. All right, so here we've got a physical address on the property. We also have a sales history on the property. We can see down here.
81.
Yeah.
Built in 81.
Built in 81, and we actually have we've got a warranty deed here from. That must be the new one.
They wouldn't issue a warranty deed. That's weird.
10 of 2019. Let's take a look at it. $16th of October. I'll bet they had tax title services do it or something like that.
Well, is this a property that's going to sell, right?
Oh yeah, it is.
I'll bet they just sold it. They just sold it and they're paying off the back taxes. They haven't recorded it yet.
Yeah, that is. I'll bet that is exactly what's happened. So that's with that property right there, 4407 Tucker. On Tucker. Yeah, it's this one right here on Tucker. So it's basically gone.
At least I would think.
This one right here. Yeah. Well, we can see right here that it sold here. Right there, improved. Of course, the amount they've got listed there is 2,000.
Yeah, that could be a pre-investor.
Yeah.
A pre-tax deed. Let's read it.
Let's see. So this warranty deed made on the
Widower.
16th of October between Thomas M. Nay, a widower, having mailing at 4407 Tucker Square. That's the same mailing address, isn't it? In Tucker, maybe it's just close.
No, the company is the Tucker Square. They have it underneath it, their own land trust, the 1407 Tucker Square Land Trust.
Yeah. This is not the grantor's homestead property. You've got the legal description right here.
Yeah, so somebody just purchased it, and let's say that they did pay, if they did pay $2,000 and paid off the back taxes and said, hey, I'll give you $2,000 and pay off the back taxes, that was a killer deal for them.
Yeah.
For the investor. Probably because this was, an older lady who lived, in a different area, and, it was an extra property and she just wanted to get out from underneath it. So they were probably into, if that is true, they were into it $2,000 plus the $6,000, into it about $8,000 total. Is it a trailer?
This whole Trouble Creek Road
looks like double wides.
Oh yeah, it must be gated right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's
trailer.
Like it's a double wide down there. Yeah, that ended up being, yeah.
That's interesting though, but we can see what just happened with that, and maybe it was something family related or something like that. It may not necessarily be, an investor, but it could be an investor that did a pre-tax sale.
Yeah, this one hasn't redeemed yet. At least, we can't see, the most recent one there is from 1999, I think.
Tennessee.
Yeah, it's a warranty deed. Yeah, that one's a mobile home as well. I do believe.
Mobile homes can be a good way to go if the conditions right on them.
Yeah.
Especially if they got their own land like this. Whoa. Get hit by a hurricane?
I can't tell.
We're just looking at the side yard because that has some trash pulling up. Hit that street view.
All right, let's see.
Good grief.
Holy moly.
What the heck?
That's 2018.
A tornado hit? Or is that just...
I don't know. It's just the dumpy lot.
Seriously, everyone's just dumping their trash there? Go down the street a little more. See if the whole place is trashed or if it's just that place.
It's pretty much just that place.
Okay, you get past there and down the road and it starts to look a little bit better.
Yeah, it does. It looks a lot better.
Well, we're not going to be buying that one.
Yeah.
That's good. No, this is all the kind of research, just looking at the numbers right there, this looks like a pretty good property. But once we go on the street level, whoa, it's not even there anymore, I don't think.
No, it's not. No, in fact, yeah, it shows it up there. What is it? It's one on Allison, I think. Here, but in reality, that assessed value, I don't think they're giving the land that value.
Look at the one up there a little higher. That's the 4 with $13,000. The one on Van Dorn.
It's also a mobile home.
Let's check out the address. You got to click the back button first. It always does that to me too.
There we go. And this one appears to be there, I think. Yeah, something's there.
It's weird, huh?
Yeah, just can't quite get, you know, like
It's jumping up
a good
further.
angle on it there, but yeah, there's something there though.
Well, let's try that address on Zillow and just kind of see what market looks like.
In value, 29,000, you know, more than double what.
It's tiny too, 684, so it's pretty small.
Yeah.
Wouldn't take that much to fix up at 640 square feet, it's about, 700 square feet.
No, the values are pretty good too. You know, I mean, everything else around there, you know, the values are.
Yeah, it's the cheapest one on the street.
Yeah.
One of the cheapest. So that one actually at $4,000 could be worth looking at. What's the rental values? Did we already click off that? $850 a month.
Yeah, it's a pretty good rent estimate.
You know,
I mean, it's the cheapest way you're gonna get that kind of
low
rent.
value as far as real estate's concerned, but high rental. You know, even if you were renting it out for $700 or $800 a month.
Yeah, let me close out some of these windows here. I guess what I'd like to do here is, on this property. So,
on a property like this as well, I don't think, on this type of property, I wouldn't buy it to do a flip. I would only buy it for as more of a rental or seller financing where I could be the bank on it, because let's say that you put in, it goes for 4 and you end up spending 8 for it, you end up spending another $2 or $3 in cleaning it up and changing paints and stuff like that. Then you try to around and sell it, it's only worth 30. Well, if you rented it out at $800 a month, it could pay off itself within a year at that cost, or a year and a half, and then you've got this residual income, coming in.
yeah. Now, Talbot Rancher, Kathleen. Kathleen Martin. So Kathleen Martin would have been the grantee, correct? So if we were searching that, I was just thinking here, if we want, gosh, we don't have enough time to search up here another name. Start digging through the records there. All these properties are interesting now.
Yeah, go on and start going kind of through this process of researching it, and it's best to try practicing, even if you don't plan on investing. Spend an hour practicing on something that's a little bit easier, like something in Florida.
Yeah, it's a good place to begin, because you can make all the pieces work here. Oh, and also the process. Oh, a good question here is, what's the process of recording your deed after the auction?
Yeah, in fact, we've actually got a training that we did on it, and we're going to be working on a training for next week.
Well, this one's recording the deed after the auction.
The county does that.
Yeah, essentially, the recording process the county will do following the auction. But how some counties will write it out. Like the deed must be recorded. Within within this set time.
It'll kind of depend on the state, but a lot of times in your deeds, they're going to, record it and send it to you unless it's state specific.
Yeah. In fact,
if you're talking about recording the deed in somebody else's name, in fact, that's something we were talking about earlier today in creating a new training on going over the steps of wholesaling a property and selling it with a quitclaim deed as is.
Yeah, or transferring title. You can also get name changes made on the properties too.
Yeah.
Anyhow, for the most part though, the recording process, the county generally does most of that on their own following the sale. You shouldn't have to do much of anything, I don't think. After you buy a deed, I think the county automatically records. It's how they record the ownership.
Yeah.
So anyhow, thanks for joining us here. I'm sure we'll see a lot of you in just a few minutes here on the weekly webinar.
Yeah, talk to you guys soon. Thanks again.